If you've been paying any attention at all to the way we buy and sell or rent things or provide services or render services over the past decade, then you know that marketplace apps are exploding online. Marketplace apps are growing exponentially faster than so many other types of apps. And the reason is because in this day and age, you can do pretty much anything online. You can do anything virtually. And so it helps people, consumers, businesses create new business, create new revenue streams, or just scale their existing revenue streams so much more just because they're able to engage in a marketplace or on a two-sided platform. And now this is especially true moving forward with COVID and all of the challenges that have come along because of that. Now, marketplace apps, more than ever before, are just in need. People and businesses are in need of marketplace apps. And that's why today I want to break down every aspect of marketplace apps. So if you're building a marketplace app, you can do so efficiently, strategically, and really just confidently, knowing that you can move into this space at a time when there's a ton of demand, that you can move into this space in the right way. So that's what we're going to break down today, and make sure you stick around until the end, because we're also going to talk about how to get your first users with a marketplace app. Now, there are two types of users generally on a marketplace app, and so this can be a little bit confusing. We're going to get to that later, so make sure you stick around for that. Now, first, if you're new around here, my name is Kristen, and I'm the co-founder of Coaching No-Code Apps, where we help business owners and industry experts build custom apps to either start their app-based businesses or grow their existing businesses, all without coding. So if you're building a marketplace app or you want to build one and maybe you don't have a programming background, that's okay. You can still take advantage of this and you can still build your own custom marketplace app without coding. So let's dive into this. There are a handful of different components that I want to touch on and talk through with you. Now, first, there are really 4 different categories of marketplace apps. Now, the app idea you have or the app you're building, it might already have some of these defining factors laid out, but you might not have really strategically thought through them. And you have to do that in order to successfully launch your app down the road. You have to know what features to build first, how to build them. You need to know how to talk about your app. You need to know which potential users to reach out to first as well. So let's get clear on all these things. So first, there are 4 different main categories of marketplace apps. So first, we have our product-based marketplaces. These are sites like Amazon or eBay, for example, where you go on to buy or sell products most of the time. You're seeing a lot of e-commerce. Now, these are different than just e-commerce stores or websites, because we're looking at them from the lens of being a part of a marketplace. So we have lots of sellers, right? Lots of different businesses or people selling the products, and then lots of different buyers as well. So this is very much a two-sided platform. So we have our product marketplaces. Now we also have our service-based marketplaces. And these are platforms more like Upwork, for example, where you can go and hire freelancers to do certain jobs for you, maybe some digital marketing or something like that. So when you go onto platforms like these, on one side, you have the quote unquote seller, the person who is offering their services. And then you have the other side, the quote unquote buyer, the person who is looking to hire someone to fulfill on certain services, right? So you have your product marketplace apps, you have your service marketplace apps, you also have your project marketplace apps. Now, these are apps that you might see in the crowdfunding space, for example, where you are generating interest or funding or backing for a new business or a new product or something like that. This can come in a lot of different shapes and forms, but you're not necessarily selling a product or selling a service, but it's still a two-sided platform where two different parties are using the app in two different ways. And the app itself is the mediator. It's that in between who is connecting the two. And then lastly, you can also find hybrid marketplace apps, which can encompass two or all three of the previous types that we went over. So think about Craigslist, for example. Craigslist, you can do pretty much anything on Craigslist. You can find services, you can find products, you can generate interest in anything, you can take part in their communities. Craigslist kind of combines everything. So you also have those hybrid marketplace apps where you're looking at an all-in-one approach. So the first thing you need to do is make sure you understand which type of marketplace app you're building, because that's going to make all of the next steps easier for you to plan out and execute on. Okay, so once you have that overarching category for your marketplace app figured out, you also need to categorize those even a little bit more. So we're going to get a little bit more specific with the type of marketplace app you're building. Okay, so within each of those, you can have three different categories of marketplace apps. So we're taking that first category that we've already identified. Now we're breaking those down into three more categories. So first, you have your B2B marketplace apps. So your business to business marketplace apps. This is where businesses are being connected on both sides. So think about wholesalers or suppliers for businesses. You can find marketplace apps for those things where businesses go on as the sellers and businesses also go on as the buyers. So on both sides of the platform, you're going to have businesses. Now we also have B2C marketplace apps. So business to consumer. Now, to give you an example of something like this, you can look at a platform like Indeed, where you have businesses listing jobs. They're listing open job positions that they need to fill within their companies. And then you have consumers coming on, searching through these jobs and applying for them. So we're connecting businesses to consumers. Now, this is a little bit different, and this is actually a good example to go over because it's easy to explain a marketplace app by saying that on one side you have buyers and on one side you have sellers. But marketplace apps, it's really better to look at them as just two-sided platforms. It's not always a literal buyer and a literal seller. With the Indeed example, those job applicants, they're not buyers, and the businesses, they're not sellers, but they're still connecting the two. Indeed.com is still connecting the two, and Indeed is acting as that mediator. They're providing the platform to make it easy for those businesses and for those consumers to connect. So just because you don't have a literal buyer or a literal seller doesn't mean that you can't categorize yourself with one of these. Okay, so next we have P2P marketplace apps or peer-to-peer marketplace apps. And in this sense, we're stepping out of that business aspect a little bit more. You can think of apps like TaskRabbit for P2P marketplace apps. TaskRabbit, any consumer or any regular person can go on and hire, quote unquote, I'm putting that in quotes, hire any other regular person to just go and do a task for them, whether it means standing in line for tickets at an event venue or whatever it may be, installing a shelf on their wall. These aren't businesses. They're not really official services like you would find on maybe a freelancing site like Upwork. It really is peer-to-peer, where regular people are just connecting with regular people, and that app, in this case TaskRabbit, is just connecting the two in an organized, convenient, and easy way. Okay, so you have your initial 4 categories of your marketplace app, and now you're going to specify with one of these categories: B2B, B2C, or P2P. Okay, now once you have that down, you also need to define one last overarching element of your app, and that is whether or not you are creating a vertical or horizontal marketplace app. Now, a horizontal marketplace app is one that really encompasses lots of different types of services, or lots of different types of products. For example, think of Amazon or Craigslist, where you can go on and really find anything and everything. You can offer or sell pretty much anything, and you can buy pretty much anything. That's a horizontal marketplace app, where it's really broad. Now you can also build a vertical marketplace app, and this is where you get a little bit more niche or more narrow in your target market. So think of apps like Airbnb, for example. Now, Airbnb lets you rent apartments or houses or vacation rentals, and it also lets you list them if you own one, if you want to rent your own home out to other people. Now, if you look at Craigslist, which is a horizontal marketplace, you'll find services like that as well. You can find people renting out rooms, you can look for roommates, but Airbnb takes that and puts it in a more vertical position, if you will. So you're taking that broad range of services or products that you could find on Craigslist, and you're pulling one out, and you're getting really vertical or really niche or deep or narrow with that one thing, and you're just offering rental services, for example. So that should give you a good idea of what a horizontal versus a vertical marketplace app is. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about strategy. So those are kind of the 3 overarching factors that you need to make sure you've made a decision on. You need to be able to categorize your app in those 3 different ways. Now, to talk a little bit more to the strategy, how do you decide whether you should go vertical or horizontal? Because a lot of people, and this is really regardless of which type of app they're building, they want to go broad. Their natural inclination is to build a horizontal marketplace or just reach as many people as they possibly can. They want their users to be anyone and everyone. But in reality, it can be a lot smarter and a lot easier for you in the long run to start vertically. So to start with a more narrow target market, or if you have a general market, pull out a segment of that market and target them first. Now, we usually see that a lot of the horizontal marketplace apps that are out there today, the really popular, well-known ones like Amazon, for example, those started as vertical marketplaces. Amazon started as a bookseller, an online bookseller where you could buy and sell your books. That's very vertical. But over time, as they brought on more users and they did more research, more user research, they got more feedback from their users, they were able to incrementally expand and become a horizontal marketplace where now they target lots of different markets, lots of different sellers, lots of different buyers, but they started in a very vertical, a very niche way and expanded from there. Now, we do have a lot of horizontal marketplace apps out there today, and we've already gone over some of the really big ones, the Craigslist, the eBay, Amazon, and so on. But we're seeing a really big uptick now in vertical marketplaces. And what's happening is, while there are those horizontal marketplaces that can really serve pretty much anyone and everyone, people are now wanting to get more specific as this marketplace concept catches on and continues to grow and become more and more popular. So now there's a growing demand for services and products in an online marketplace type of way, or that are accessible via an online marketplace. So what we're seeing happen is companies or founders are now pulling segments out of those horizontal marketplace apps and creating new vertical marketplaces. And they're scaling up those vertical marketplaces and then eventually turning them into horizontal marketplaces that cater to their own specific users. So here's what I mean, because that might sound a little bit confusing. Okay, think of Craigslist, where, again, this is definitely a horizontal marketplace. They serve pretty much anyone and everyone. You can do pretty much anything on Craigslist. You can buy anything, you can sell anything, you can find any type of service, and so on. Now, think about Airbnb, okay? Airbnb actually offers a service that's really similar to one of the services that Craigslist offers, which is renting out a room or an apartment or a house and finding a room or an apartment or a house. So Airbnb has now created this vertical marketplace app that has really just pulled one small component out of something that you might find on Craigslist. Now, as Airbnb has grown a lot, they've started to now create a more horizontal space for themselves. But they're not just going in the direction of Craigslist, for example, where they're offering anything and everything. They're using the feedback from their specific users that are specific to their vertical niche market, and they're expanding based on those users' needs. So now, instead of just letting users rent or rent out their homes, their rooms, etc., they're offering things like experiences or tours. So now, people who live in certain cities and act as tour guides can offer tours to people who are visiting certain cities and are looking for more personal one-on-one tours or experiences. Airbnb has also talked about creating their own housing complexes and renting those out. So you can see now this vertical marketplace app is starting to turn into a more horizontal marketplace app. And so you can do the same. And in fact, I would suggest starting in a more vertical way and then going horizontal based on your user feedback. And that's going to help you scale and grow a lot more strategically. Now, once you've figured that out, you need to think about your pricing, because there are a handful of different ways you yourself can make money with a marketplace app, and how your users can also make money. So the main pricing models that you'll see on a marketplace app are commission-based pricing. So this is where, if you are buying and selling products, for example, you as the marketplace owner might take a commission based on how much that product or that service costs. Or you could go the subscription route, where in order for users to come onto the platform and use the platform, they have to pay a recurring subscription, maybe a monthly subscription, maybe an annual subscription. And you don't necessarily have to have both types of users, both the buyer and the seller, paying the subscription. Maybe only one of them does, maybe the one who is more dependent on the platform. You can also have listing fees, where you simply charge your sellers to list their products or their services. assuming that they are going to make money on the other end. And so it's going to it's going to give them that ROI. It's going to make it worthwhile for them to pay for that listing fee. You can also charge for sponsorships or ads, where if a seller wants their product or their service to show up in the search results, for example, up at the top, they can pay extra. Or maybe you just want to put ads on your marketplace app, and you can do this alongside any of these other pricing models. You can also put ads, and so you can generate a small revenue whenever those ads are clicked, for example. So you want to figure out what your pricing model is going to be. Now, keep in mind, this can change. So don't let that hold you back from moving forward. Don't let, being able to choose the most perfect and correct pricing model, don't let that hold you back. Know that it can change, okay? Now, we're gonna talk a little bit more about the structure of the app. And this is where we get more so into the development side of things, because a marketplace app specifically really has 3 different platforms combined into one. You have a platform for your buyers, you have a platform for your sellers, but you also have to have a platform for your admins. Now, in the beginning, this will probably just be you or maybe a small team. But it's really, while a marketplace app is a 2-sided platform, there are really 3 sides to it, but one is going to be internal. Now, we work with a lot of clients who are building marketplace apps, and we specifically like to use Bubble as our app building platform with them because, some people come into this thinking that they have to build 3 different apps and then connect all of those apps so that they work together, but you don't have to. You can create one app and simply create 3 different dashboards or 3 different portals, if you will, for each of these user types. Now, there are some really specific and important components that have to go into being able to build that correctly. So if you're having those 3 user types on your platform, it's really important that you, number one, structure your database correctly to account for and accommodate for each of those user types and all of the functionalities and the processes that are going to be involved with each of those user types. You also want to make sure that you're able to set up the correct user roles. Now, this is where we start talking about privacy or security a little bit more. And with a marketplace app, this is really important. When you have these 2 sides to the platform, and really 3 sides, you want to make sure that your app is really secure, and that when one type of user comes on, they're only able to access the data and information in the pages, for example, that is meant for their user type. So when the buyer logs in, you don't want them seeing the seller's side of the app, and vice versa. You have to make sure that your app is structured in a way that enables that security and that privacy and really just that overall functionality and experience. Now, on top of that, because there are a lot of important foundational components that go into a marketplace app, you have to make sure that it's built in a way so that it's optimized for scale. On an app like this, you have these 2 different sides. And on these 2 different sides, like I said, you could almost be building multiple apps. They're different platforms. They have different features, different functionalities. They're geared towards different uses and different users. And so you want to make sure that the core of your app is built in a really scalable way so that as you layer on new features and additional features, as you make updates to your existing features, and as you grow your app, that it still supports that growth. It supports the increasing user base. It supports those additional feature sets, for example, because what we see a lot is that when more complex apps like this aren't built correctly from the start, they're not structured correctly, as they grow, because you're combining these almost two platforms into one, they can have performance issues, for example, really poor user experiences, simply because once you start adding on new features, if that base component hasn't been built in a way that is scalable, then those new features or those new users will start to slow it down. They will be added weight, and that load will grow heavier and heavier and heavier. And you don't want that to happen, because you don't want to get to the point where you have this growing app, you have the demand for it, but you can't support it. You don't want that to happen. So you have to make sure that that base of your app, really the core of your app, is structured correctly. This is true of any app, but because there is this two-sided component to a marketplace app, it's just all that more important for you. So now that we've kind of covered all of our bases, the next big question really is, how do you get your first users for a marketplace app? And this can be really confusing, and understandably so. And the reason is because it's kind of like a chicken and egg scenario where you don't really know which one comes first. Do the sellers come first? Do the buyers come first? You can't just have one of them on the platform, because if you just have one, then it's not going to work. So who do you find first? Now, in reality, there are tons of different tactics, and it's really going to depend on your specific situation, your specific app, your specific target market. And so, we can't cover all of those in one video, and we can't deep dive into your specific app. But I can give you one rule of thumb that you can follow, and kind of just a general intro into how this works. And really, you want to think about it this way. Your suppliers are always going to have to be on the app first. So your sellers, for example, that side of the app, the people or the businesses who are supplying the products or supplying the services. Because until they're on the app, it's really just not usable. If you have the buyers on the app, but nothing to buy, then nobody's going to stay on. So you have to make sure that you can get your suppliers on the app first. Once you have those, there's always going to be a demand for what those suppliers are providing. So it'll be easier. I shouldn't say easy, it'll be simpler and more straightforward to then bring the buyers on, because there's always that demand, right? But your suppliers have to be on there first. Now, how do you get your suppliers on board if there are no buyers? This is back to that chicken and egg scenario. Well, one quick tip that you can try, and again, there are lots of different strategies that can go along with this, but if you can generate interest from your buyers, whether that be through emails, through conversations, through phone calls, maybe you are gathering opt-ins from a landing page, whatever it may be, there are tons of different ways you can go with this. But if you can generate interest, then you can use that interest to bring your suppliers on board. Because if there is a demand for their services or for their products, and they know that demand is going to be there, then it will be worthwhile for them to join your platform and to start offering those products or those services. And then you can turn back around to all the people who were interested as buyers and bring them on board as well. So that's just a quick tip for you to get started with, because I know this area can be really confusing. Okay, so we have gone through a lot about marketplace apps. First, if you don't have a technical background, if you don't know how to code, that's okay. You can build very customized and complex marketplace apps without coding. And now you have categorized your app, the type of marketplace app you're building, and you've narrowed that down even more, and you've narrowed that down even more, and you've kind of decided whether you want to have this horizontal or this vertical marketplace app. We've talked about some of the strategy that goes along with that. We've talked about pricing. We've talked about structure. We've talked about bringing users on board. So from here, the next step is for you to dive in and really make sure that you are building this correctly, that you're scoping it correctly, you're building the right features first at the right time for the right users in the right order. This is really important. And if you want to get started on that today, or make sure that you've gotten started correctly, if you already have started building your app, you can head to coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop and sign up for a free training where we'll guide you step by step through these initial pieces with your app to make sure that you're really set up for success early on. So head to coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop to get started right now. And if you found this video helpful, give it a like down below, subscribe for more just like it. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.